No discussion about acid lines would be complete without a mention of a TB303. So let's have a quick look at that synthesizer and check out what that does. Okay, so here we have Audio Realisms bassline, which for all intents and purposes sounds exactly the same as the 303. Has all the same controls, same sequencer, and it does a really, really good job at emulating the exact sound of it. So let's have a close look at the synthesizer section. What you have basically is a very stripped down synthesizer compared to the ones that we've been looking at. What you have over here in terms of a waveform is you have two options. You either have a saw wave or you have a square wave. So not a whole lot of choice there, just your two basic waveforms. Then you have a tuning section which tunes up or down, fine tune. We'll ignore that. Then you have a cutoff and resonance for the filter section, which is an 18 dB per octave filter, which is a little unusual. Roland decided to put that on the machine for reasons best known to themselves. It certainly helps in giving it a slightly different character, because most filters are usually 12 dB per octave or 24 dB per octave. So it gives it a slightly unique voice. Then you have the very stripped down, these two controls are the envelope section. So not only do you only get one envelope, but you don't even get an attack control, you don't get a release control, you don't get a sustain control. All you get is a simple decay. Plus, that one decay suffices for both the amplitude and the filter envelope. So what does it sound like? Not wildly interesting. Saw wave. Filter. As you can hear, as I'm holding down the note, it's fading out because the amp and filter envelope are both the same. The envelope modulation is the filter modulation intensity. So that's lots. That's zero. Even at zero, it has some. And the decay is obviously the decay of the filter envelope and amplitude envelope in this case. So that's on maximum, and that's faster. And lastly, the accent control is a programmable accent that you can apply to any step in the step sequencer. So when you're programming your 16th note patterns, you can program accent as part of the sequence. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the TB303 sequencer. That's the section down here. It's beyond the scope of this video to go into depth about how exactly to program a TB303 sequencer. Suffice to say that it's notoriously unintuitive. This had the interesting side effect of making the musicians and producers use the TB303 for other purposes than it was originally intended. Supposed to be for making bass lines which synchronize with the TR-606 drum machine to enable guitarists in pubs and clubs to do a solo set and have a bass line and a drum kit of sorts accompanying them. But that was the original plan, but it was never really used for that because it was such a pain to program, and it eventually got used to make interesting and original sounds in early techno and acid techno and trance and all those interesting new musics that came together in the late 80s and early 90s, acid house, etc. Acid house was mainly based around a 303, a 101 perhaps, Roland 101, SH 101 for playing the bass lines, and a 909 machine for playing the percussion. But I digress, back to the sequencer. One of the interesting idiosyncrasies of the sequencer was that you were able to program slides and accents into particular steps in the sequence. So if you had a 16-step sequence and you stepped through it like this, you were able to program an accent on step 8 and a slide on step 9, etc. Probably easiest for me to demonstrate this by playing a pattern I've prearranged So here's a 1-bar pattern. You can hear that it has some slides. So it's kind of slithering around the sound rather than being separate notes. If I put the accents up. And now I'm going to tweak around to give you an idea of the kind of sounds that 303 makes. Filter that bass down a bit so you can concentrate on the 303. One of the characteristics of it was the huge amount of filter decay depth there is. If I put the envelope mod to full, accent up, it's a huge amount. When you're making 303 lines as well, if you do lots of real-time tweaking with the sounds, you can really create sounds which you haven't been heard a million times. Let's hear the square wave. If I take some of these accents, the slides off, I think you get the idea. The TB303, the originator of the acid line,